Hello, good people. I am so excited to bring you this interview with K.E.N, killing every note, the God level GOAT. That's going to be stuck in your heads just like it's stuck in mine. He's a rapper from Chicago. He's also a part of hip hop in Chinatown. His latest single, Intoxicated, is out now. Ken, welcome.
Oh man, thanks for having me. Obviously, you do your research. That was amazing. One of the best introductions I've had in a while. So I appreciate that.
Listen, I every time you say it, I was just like, that is so smooth the way that you have it like laid out, and I couldn't forget about it. So when you requested the interview, I was like, yes, we need to do this, and I need to come prepared. So yes, I'm glad that you did it. Tell us about how you came to that name. Like, where did that name even really come from? Was that part of the plan originally, or did it just sort of happen?
Not at all. So growing up, my favorite rapper when I hit high school was Big Sean. That's when he was first coming into the scene when he did the Finally Famous mixtapes. I Do It, what I'm saying, all those old songs.
Right.
And so, because I was such a fan, I decided to name myself Big Ken. But
Ah,
I didn't want to be a total biter, so I put two G's at the end.
okay.
So I was BIGG for a long time. But then as I started growing and doing music, my friends and artist constituents, they couldn't let me do that no further. And it was like, Ken, it's corny. You got to stop it. And I'm like, it was like, you just need to do something that's a little more smooth, a little more you. And so I took the first part of my real name and I made it an acronym. So I was just K.E.N for a good portion.
Mm-hmm.
And the God level GOAT tagline came later on when I was feeling myself. I got a little whiff of myself and I was like, "Ooh, you smell good." And I always realized that, and I noticed that people would either say that they're the GOAT or they're a God MC. So I always feel like I was gifted with music and my abilities shine. So I'm like, I'm kind of above that. So I guess I'm a God level MC.
Hey,
I'm the God among the goats. So
yeah,
then God level goat came from there, and
excellent.
it took about a year before people accepted that. When I first introduced it, people looked at me kind of funny, as anybody would as a
Right.
self-proclaimed rapper.
Right.
But after a year or so, people started connecting with it, and it just became a part of my personal brand.
Listen, you got to own it too, right? And every time I see you perform or anything like that, you say it with such like confidence and everything. So I think it's perfect. I think it's really great. And obviously it's catchy because I remembered it. So I think you're on the right path with that. How did you get started as a rapper? Like, what was sort of your inspiration? I know you said Big Sean, but were there other aspects of it where you were like, okay, I want to pursue this? Like, how did you really get into that?
It's funny. So the very first, I guess, introduction to rapping or anything musical was when I did spoken word growing up in elementary school. I was a huge fan of Langston Hughes as a poet, and I used to I had a book by him. I took it everywhere, and I used to just read his poems and memorize them.
Wow.
And so the very first poem I did was a poem called Hip Hop Shoes back in like fifth grade. I want to say fifth grade. And I blew up at the school for that. Like I was Mr. Hip Hop Shoes at that point. Everybody um, related me to Hip Hop Shoes, and they thought I wrote it. So it got to that point where they even thought it was my own original piece. And so I did. That was laying the groundwork and the foundation for me being interested in poetry, spoken word. You know what I'm saying, hip hop, etc. When I got to high school, actually, though, it's when it exploded. It was a guy in my class. I never forget him. His name was Caesar Miranda, and he used to rap all the time in class. He'll rap like other famous songs though.
Right.
And then one day he started rapping, I guess, his own original stuff. And me, being the type of person I was, very competitive, I was like, I can rap better than that. And so I went home and I wrote my first rap. And I used to carry the sheet of paper with me around school. I was a freshman, and I would read it to anybody who would listen. And it was like, oh wow, this dope. Oh wow, this cold. So then people started requesting that I read it. And then from that I was like, okay, I gotta do this for real, you know what I'm saying? Okay. So then I went home and I wrote my second piece, and people didn't like that one so much. I didn't get a lot of fan favor from that. They actually kind of like baked me a little bit. But it was that feeling for me to be like, oh, okay, you know what I'm saying? Like it or not, y'all paying attention. Let me see if I can do this for real. So then
Right.
I just started, writing more, and I just started jotting down ideas and jotting down rhymes, and it kind of just grew from there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Love that. I love that story. And I love how you were just like, look, we gonna keep it pushing. And sometimes we say things and we do things and they don't really work out, but then you keep moving and you level up, right? So I love that you talked about that.
Exactly.
You mentioned that Big Sean is one of your inspirations. Who are your sort of other inspirations locally, like Chicago scene, and then globally? I would guess that you have some global inspiration being involved with hip hop in Chinatown and things like that.
Definitely. Locally speaking, um, a lot of my homies, to be honest, push me. Um, just to name out a few, I got my homie the Ambiance. He's a super dope creative artist. He's actually I worked with him years ago, and he actually really helped me get to this point. Me and him are still cool to this day, but like he was definitely a very big influence
Yep.
in me understanding music more. I used to so we had a deal, me and him, that I would help him find opportunities because I was doing stuff in the scene and what I'm saying, doing competitions and performing at open mics, but he had a studio. So I didn't have any recorded music, but nobody knew him, but he had all this recorded music.
Right.
So we kind of just started helping each other. We were business partners before we were friends. Even though we went to school together for 4 years and only spoke like 5 times. So he's definitely a really big influence. Who else? I would say locally speaking, I would definitely say Chance as far as like, the brand that he created. He made it possible to realize that you can obtain a massive amount of fame and be a mainstay in hip hop and not have a label.
Right.
You know, coming from the idea of my perception of music that I needed a label and I needed to get signed in order to be famous. So he was very important with that. I would also say being around people like Matt Muse,
Mm-hmm.
No Name, um, Taylor Bennett when I was younger, Huey Gang when I was first starting doing music, like all these artists, I saw their level of fame and I saw what they were doing and I strived to get to that.
Right.
It was super important to me that, I was working my way to that level and to be in the same conversations as them.
Mm.
And now I am,
Yeah.
so it definitely just kind of pushed me and I could definitely like chalk up a lot of influences and a lot of just me wanting to be better due to them and seeing what they were doing and definitely a lot of respect for every artist that I mentioned.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, for sure.
So yes, that's local.
What about
Now,
global?
globally,
You got anybody?
go off that Eminem off that is probably my biggest influence.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
My biggest influence.
Yeah.
I love Eminem. I love everything he does. Like just his abilities are just insane and unheard of. His rapping abilities is his abilities to put words together, and having two diamond albums.
Right.
That's amazing.
Right.
So yeah, he's definitely just a huge influence.
Yeah.
Lil Wayne is also another influence. I love Lil Wayne. Ludacris was also a big influence growing up. Uh, yeah, I think those are my biggest ones.
Yeah.
Biggest ones, and
Those are some good
especially
choices.
honorable mention to Nas. I really
Ah, yes, yes, definitely the OG, the OG. So talk to us about your
yeah, of
process
course.
when you're writing songs and things like that. What do you do? Do you said you used to carry around a notebook and, paper and things like that, but nowadays are you keeping it in your phone or are you in the studio all the time? What are you sort of doing with your process to really get to where you want to go?
So yeah, so my first process is the beat selection.
Okay.
Everything starts with the beat, and what I personally do is that I turn the beat on, and if I can't freestyle to it within the first 15 to 30 seconds, I don't use it.
Wow.
Um, that go around. Yeah, I have if I can freestyle a nice melody or freestyle a nice little story or whatever, and it fits and it sounds good, and it gets me excited enough to write to it. But I have go around, so I'll listen to like 50 beats in
Right.
one sitting and then I'll freestyle off the different ones for 15, 30 seconds. And then I'll go back through the 50 again just to see if I have a different perspective. Maybe I missed something. So by the end of that, I'll probably pick like 2 or 3 beats that I'm really feeling. And then I'll start writing those. Typically,
Okay.
I just listen to the beat for a week,
Yeah.
maybe. so I can kind of really understand every element. So I can, understand the drums, the synth, whatever instrumentation is in it. That helps dictate where I'm going to rap at, or what part of that beat is going to be the part that I use to create the flow and cadence.
Right.
Um, after that, I create the flow and cadence before I write any words. I start freestyling without really saying anything. So I listen to a beat and I'll be like, you know what I'm saying? So I'm
Mm,
writing the flow.
right.
That way it's easier for me just to throw the words in there now because I know how I can, the specific way that I want to say this. That eliminates millions of words now because there's only
Right.
so many words that can fit within that flow.
Yeah.
Then after that, I typically start with the hook. Every now and again, I'll write the verse first, but I typically start with the hook because that's the glue for the song. And then after the hook, the verses come. Um, then there's the revision stage. I fix everything up, tighten some things, and yeah. So that's pretty much the process for me. That's my writing process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whole thing takes about a month.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know. Yeah. Because you said you got something coming out on November 30th. We'll get to that in a little bit, but it's good to know that we're probably halfway through that process right now, then, right? Um, Going back
Yeah.
to local, rap scene, Chicago, things like that. How do you think about it? Do you feel like you're compelled to leave to succeed? A lot of artists from Chicago end up leaving and going to LA or going to New York to try and make it big. Do you feel like the need to do that, or do you feel like Chicago is really where it's at?
Um, so yeah, that's an interesting question because my mindset wavers at different times.
Mm.
From because not only do I do music, but I'm also really big into the business side of it as well. I try to
Right.
make sure I understand contracts and agreements and and licensings and stuff of that, etc. And marketing, anything that ties together. So the artist part of me is like, I want to make it in Chicago. This is my home. This is where I grew up at. This is, saying where I really did a lot of my first stuff. I got all these connections and resources and friends, and I'm saying it's all nostalgic for me, so I love it. But then the business and the marketing side of me understands um, freshness and growth, and saying, and going other places helps with that, especially when you go to like maybe like Florida, where Chicago style rapping isn't as known and popular. I'm saying we have accents, we have different ways of how we rap.
Right.
That in itself is a marketing tool.
Right.
I'm saying, being something different and fresh. So it's a battle because part of me plans, I do want to leave for a little bit just to you know push my brand a little further,
Mm-hmm.
but I I don't want to feel like if I can't make it in the place that I grew up at. So it's definitely a hard choice. I understand either side, and any rapper who does decide to leave Chicago and go do somewhere else. I totally respect it. I get it. The people who decide to stay here, I totally respect it, and I get it. Um, at the end of the day, we just got to do what's best for our brand, and do what's best for our abilities and our chances to, you know, get to a larger scale.
Right. Speaking of your brand, it looks like you're working on clothing, merch, different aspects of that. Might be wearing some of it right now. What's going on with that process? What is sort of the goal? Are you starting a fashion line? Or are you just dropping merch? What's going on?
I'm a Libra, so Libras are naturally fashionable,
Yes.
and I've always been interested in fashion. I've always been interested in clothes, so I am wearing some of my merch right
I
now.
see. I see. I
My
see.
God Level Gold hat,
Yes.
and I got the hoodie right
Yes.
here. So eventually, I do want to start a fashion line.
Yeah.
That's always been one of my main goals. Right now, I'm just dropping merch. I went through a rebranding phase. I changed my logo. Kind of I kind of understand my demographic now of
Mm-hmm.
who I'm reaching. So I needed my logo, my brand to reflect that. I'm a colorful person. I'm very, just up there, hyper, and
Yeah. Yeah.
goofy and stuff. So I wanted my brand to reflect that with the bright colors,
Right.
the kid next door theme logo.
Yeah.
So yeah, so hopefully I envision turning this to a brand, but I do have merch on deck, and I'm doing a giveaway pretty soon to
Hey.
give away a blue jean jacket.
Hey,
So
love that. Love that. That'll be perfect for winter. Talk
yes.
to us a little bit about what is hip hop in Chinatown, how it got started. Shout out to Shifa. I know that you work with him on that. What's going on with hip hop in Chinatown? You all had big event last year. What was sort of your inspiration for getting involved with that? And then sort of what is it for everybody that doesn't know?
So basically, Hip Hop in Chinatown, it is a collective of artists, multimedia personalities. When we give a platform from hip hop and branching it to an Asian culture through other cultures as well. Prior to hip hop in Chinatown, Chinatown itself was pretty isolated from a lot of other communities, and especially the Chinatown Square. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
There never in the world would we ever thought we would see a hip hop concert in the Chinatown Square.
Yeah.
So the very first year I went, I signed up to just be a rapper and an artist, but they
Okay.
didn't pick me. Believe it or not, I was not picked, and
Okay.
so I still went up there for support. And I ended up getting called on stage due to my mentor, Fanam. A lot of people might know Fanam. Shout out to Fanam. And he had a little freestyle thing, and I won $5, but it presented me in front of people.
Right.
So because of that, I was able to meet up with Shifa's partner at the time. His name is David. David wrote us, and me and him picked it. We hit it off. He gave me more information about Chinatown. I connected with Shifa, and we stayed close. So the next year we did it. I was a part of it, but it was a competition
Right.
that year, and it got rained out, so we had to move it to a church on 35th, and it was still cool, but it was not what we expected.
Right.
I ended up winning the competition
Hey.
against Brittany Carter. If you happen to know who that is, Brittany Carter is a super dope,
Keep the name.
talented
Yeah.
artist. Shout out to shout out to Luke Theory. Um, and due to winning that, he was like, "You want to host it for next time?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it."
Yeah.
I was grateful. So we went through the whole process. That the next year, we started meeting every week. Me, him, another guy named Jason who did a lot of designs for us. Um, we picked the artist. Oof, that was the most
Yeah.
interesting part. Was like, it's so crazy being an artist and seeing how simple directions are, and how a lot of artists just don't seem to know how to follow them. Like we had
Artist
a very
education. Yep.
simplified submission process,
Yep.
and people were just doing the weirdest things. Like they would send broken links, they would send just terrible sound quality, and it's like either y'all don't respect what y'all sending, or y'all really don't do this for real. So that's what I learned from
Mm,
that.
yeah.
We did the submission, and the day of the event, it just rocked. Like I think we had about 5,000 people at any given point,
I remember.
and I
Big.
was on stage for about 3 hours, just controlling the crowd. It was a lot of interesting things that went into it. That I don't want to speak on because I don't want to give the integrity of
Right.
our establishment. But we had to work through some things, and it was a little challenging. But just feeling that atmosphere, and that really solidified me as a host and my personal mind. I've hosted prior things to that, and people always give me love when it comes to hosting. But to be able to control so many people
Right.
at that volume for that long really spoke to me. And we had really big plans. Unfortunately, Corona happened
I
for
know.
this year,
Yeah.
so we had to push them back. But we're still working. We're still doing a lot of stuff.
Yep.
Me and him started a YouTube channel called Eating with My Black Friend.
Hey.
Um,
We'll put a link
so
below.
we're still definitely. So we're still working. Hip Hop in Chinatown is still moving. So hopefully when this Corona stuff passes over, we will get right back to the massive festivals that we like to throw, and we're doing some really big things.
Yeah, and you all had I remember a virtual event earlier this year too that I tuned into that was good, and I got to meet a lot of cool people through that. So definitely shouts out to Hip Hop in Chinatown. And when we're back and able to be together, I hope that everyone can come join that. And thank you also. You're a great host. Ken hosted our Tip Fest this year. The John Wall Foundation did with Chicago Parks District. So really shout out to you for doing that with the third. Thank you for your time and for keeping everybody, excited and things like that. So, who is your ideal collaboration? Like moving forward, like dream collab, like you want a track that says Ken featuring so and so.
Are we talking locally here,
It could be
or
anyone.
are we talking just in general?
It,
I give both locally and nationally.
okay.
So nationally, of course, it has to be Eminem.
Yeah.
That's my That's the goal. That's that. Even if he retires, I'm gonna bring him out of retirement and have a song with Eminem. Like
Okay.
I've always felt like I can impress him lyrically speaking, and I feel like we could just make something super dope, especially if I lead the creative process. Eminem is a super dope rapper, but song making abilities is never his strongest suit. So if I have control over how the song is going to be made,
Yeah.
and he can just offer his verse, that'd be life. Like I feel like I made it at that point.
Okay.
So fingers crossed
Okay.
that I get that.
Right.
Locally speaking, I think I think I would really want to do a song with No Name.
Okay.
When she was recently in a little beef, I believe. You
Yeah.
heard about that with
Something. Yeah.
and you know
Yeah.
yeah. And when I heard her response, that's when I grew a lot of respect for her.
Yeah.
Like not what I'm saying, I've known of her for a minute, never really like paid attention to her music. I know she was dope, but like that verse was really good. It
Yeah.
was really good, and I'm like, gee, she can rap. Okay,
Yes.
like what I'm saying, I'm feeling that. That's dope. So either her or Mick Jenkins would be my two top choices as far as locally speaking.
For sure.
Two like super amazing artists.
All right. We'll put it out there.
Mhm.
What are you working
But
on?
speaking of that, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yep.
Sorry to cut you off. But speaking
No.
of that, I actually do have a song coming out with a pretty big Chicago staple. I can't say no names just yet,
Okay. Okay.
but he does. What I'm saying, he's respected in Chicago. Does a
Okay.
lot. You've seen him on stage before as well,
Okay. Okay.
so I'm
My
pretty
brain
sure
is
you
like
have.
going
So
through the Rolodex. Okay.
saying blue check mark and everything. Songs with Chance, McJenkins, etc.
Verified.
So
Right. Okay. Yeah. 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 For sure. For sure.
we're moving.
So okay, besides that, anything else that you're working on? Anything you want to promote? You want everybody to know about? What's going on? Tell us.
Yes, yes. I have a lot of different things I'm working on. I'm also part of a collective called MC School,
Mm,
and a distinctive collective through that called the Upperclassmen, which is a solidified special group of 7 MCs, and they're hitters, all hitters, and we do a lot of stuff in the community under the tutelage of Phenom.
okay.
So we right now we're currently teaching a hip hop class every Tuesday and Thursday at the Firehouse on Hamlin under Pastor Phil.
Okay.
He runs the Firehouse. He's a very good guy. They take convicts and people who got records in jail and they give them jobs there as
Wow.
cooks and
Yeah.
chefs, etc.
Yeah.
So he does a lot of community stuff. So he helps with this class. It's called 808s and Classmates.
Oh wow.
And we're just teaching hip hop. We're giving it's about 13 of them. We're giving them all the necessary tools to kind of get to that next level,
Right.
based off of a program we did called MC School. It was a 6-month program where we did a whole bunch of stuff. We learned how to throw shows. We learned how to throw events. We learned how to um, studio etiquette. We learned, networking. What I'm saying, all the necessary tools that you need to
Hmm.
be an MC,
Yeah.
past just doing the music. So yeah, so that's super exciting just to be able to give knowledge
Yeah.
to other artists who's looking for that next step.
Yeah.
So it feels good just to give them a sense of direction for these artists who want to take the next step in music. And you'll be surprised uh, how hungry and thirsty they can be to learn. Like the smallest things just excites them. Like
Mm,
they didn't know that you can put your music on Spotify.
right.
And it's like, wow, I thought SoundCloud was the only thing you could do. So
Right.
that feels really good. As you know, I'm also working on merch.
Yeah.
I got I got prototypes being made just to get a feel for it and get the audience's flavor and what they want. So then I'm about to go into mass reproduction for that.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
Yes.
Um, what else? What else? I have a song coming out
Yeah.
November 30th. I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about that more in detail. So I'm excited about that. Uh, just a lot of great stuff. Just a lot of great stuff.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of self-teaching, teaching myself guitar, teaching myself how to produce, Adobe Illustrator. So yeah,
Yeah.
just I'm working, I'm grinding, and 2021 is just going to be a very big year for me, and I look forward to it.
Excellent. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about this November 30th drop? Is there something we should know?
Yes, so with this November 30th drop, it is very possible this drop will be, um, first of all, paired with a giveaway for
Okay.
the merch. So yeah, I definitely want to stay tuned for that.
Yes.
The drop is from a song called "That's What You Said," because I don't know the ability to curse on here, so I'm gonna keep it
Yes.
respectful.
Yes.
It's featuring my buddy Rizzo Richie Rich, very cool artist, very cool guy. We actually made this song probably about a year and a half ago,
Okay.
but it's finally it's just feel like the right time to push it out.
Right.
It's a dope song, very high energy. I'm looking forward to it. Most likely gonna do a music video as well, coming out with it soon. November 30th. It's gonna be on all streaming services, Spotify, Apple, all that. So make sure y'all definitely tune in with that. It's gonna.
Excellent.
I really like the song. It's really dope.
Hey, we're excited. We're excited. So I always wrap up the interviews with a this or that question. And I'm gonna throw
Hmm.
like a little curveball at you real quick. Um, dim sum
Mm,
or American breakfast? And we talking like it's Sunday morning. You thinking about brunch? What are you gonna
hmm.
do?
I'm a super big fan of dim sum. Super big fan. Like
I am too.
all my
That's
time in
why I
Chinatown. I didn't got so connected with it, but there's nothing like an American breakfast. There's nothing
asked.
like it. You get your eggs, you got your French toast, you got your grits. You know what I'm saying? You got the sausage, the biscuits with the butter, and then you
Yep.
put some jelly on there or some honey. It's nothing like that. So
Yep.
I gotta go one for American breakfast, but dim sum is definitely
Right up
respect it.
there. Right. Yeah. Depending on the day, it might be both. Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you
You
so
know what I'm
much.
saying?
Thank you so much for sharing with us. So excited for what you've got coming at the end of this year and then at the top of 2021. Can't wait to see what you're doing, and we will definitely stay tuned.
Awesome. I appreciate you for having me on here.
Yeah.
It's always dope. I look forward to working with you in any
Yes.
capacity in the future.
For
It's gonna
sure.
be
For
dope.
sure. Sounds good.